Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just thought I'd give you my quick review of the Google Pixel 4. Now, if you've followed my other videos, you know I've had this phone for a while now, a little bit less than a week, about 5 days. I think that's been enough time for me to gather most of my thoughts about it. Of course, I had my expectations about it, both good and bad, based on other reviews. For example, I thought the battery life would be atrocious, based on some of the things I was hearing with the review units and some of the other reviews I heard out there. But as it turns out, for example, that was, as far as I'm concerned, quite overblown as a concern. So I'll talk to you about basically 4 categories today. I'm going to grade the phone on design, on battery life, on the software, on the camera, and then give it an overall grade at the end. So, some things in those categories may be more important to you than other things. So, if you're thinking about buying this phone or you're deciding between phones, then maybe you can sort of weigh one of those categories more than the other. Okay, so let me start with design. Now, the Google Pixel line has been pretty renowned for its unique design, for better or for worse, right? My personal opinion, before the Google Pixel 4 and 4 XL, I never even considered a Pixel phone just because of how ugly I thought the phones were, to be frank with you. Now, I actually thought their official case lineup was pretty nice, and most people do put cases on their phones. I usually don't. Now, to me, design is pretty important. It might be to you, it might not be to you. Some people don't really care about that, so you can decide that for yourself. This, to me, is the nicest Pixel design by far. Nicer than the original, than the 2, than the 3, for sure. It's distinct, it's unique, and it's hard to call it ugly anymore. Some people still want to say that, but it's almost like you feel like they're I don't know, they have something against it, like they're fanboying or fangirling out on another brand, and they just want to keep calling the Google Pixel ugly. I'm here to tell you from a neutral perspective, the 1, 2, and 3 were pretty ugly. The 4, not really. Is this camera hump the best? No, but let's be completely real. The iPhone 11's camera array is, well, it's improved as a camera, but the design is ugly. It's bigger than this sort of camera housing here, and obviously they would have done better with a black camera housing. And so this is, just put it this way, it's not the ugliest camera housing system here in 2019. I think that belongs, quite honestly, to the iPhone. Is it the nicest phone out in 2019? No. But out of 5, I'd give the Google Pixel and Google Pixel 4 XL's design a 3.5. Okay, and that's an improvement, because previous Pixels, to me, were getting anywhere in the range of a 1 to maybe maximum of 2.5 in the design category. Okay, now build quality, which I'm not rating separately, because I would say that build quality feels pretty firm for all the 2019 flagships, if we're being completely honest. Build quality feels absolutely excellent. All right, this matte finish kind of has this satin feel on the back to this glass, and it's got an aluminum metal chassis here that's also matte. While I really like the polished aluminum frames of, like, say, the Galaxies and even the iPhones. That started really with, I would say, the S8 and the Note 8 on the Galaxies with the really polished metal frames, and then that went over to I think the iPhone 10 and 10s, and thankfully after going away from that with the S9, Samsung brought that back with the S10 lineup. But even though it doesn't have those polished metal frames, it fits the design ethos perfectly. This finish on the back matches very much in terms of, I don't just mean color, I just mean in finish. This metal chassis here around the edges. So design, I'd give it a 3.5, and you could always, either to protect it or to jazz it up a little, you've got your cases from Google as well, and they've got several different colors. This is the sort of smoky. They've got the could be coral. They have a blue version that's also very nice, and a black version. This was my favorite one, and I felt like when I kind of wanted to show off the orange, or I just wanted to rock the phone without a case, then I'd do so without a case. And so I didn't get the matching orange case because I wanted the phone to look different when I wanted to. It's almost sort of like getting 2 different color phones when you can get a case, an official OEM case that That's a different color, and of course it still matches with the Coral Google logo and the power button there. I did a video, I did a little unboxing and short review on this case on my channel, so go check that out if you're interested. So design's pretty good. That's definitely not a reason not to get this phone, whereas in the past it may have been for the Pixel lineup. Battery life. I think that's, in terms of Pixel 4 characteristics, I would say that it's very, very likely that that's probably the most searched for and probably concerning to people on the web. So let me get straight to battery life. I've already touched on that several times in some other videos. Battery life, A, it's not terrible. B, it's not great. C, battery life has been taking a lot of unfair criticism on this phone. Now, unless I have some kind of super unit or something, my Google Pixel 4 is probably just like any other retail unit. I don't know if there were issues with the pre-production unit, or excuse me, like the review units, for example, or the pre-production software. I don't know. But you've seen on my phone, and you've seen screenshots I took in a previous video about battery life, that I'm clearing 5 hours of screen on time. Okay, and that is with always on display, always on. Okay, as it should be. That's the point of it. Now, you know, maybe you prefer to not have this on all the time. I don't know, but for me, I prefer the always on display, and you see how quickly and elegantly that unlocks. But for me, I want always on display, on all the time. And 2, I've got the 90 hertz refresh rate on full time. Now let me say this right off the bat. If you're not going to force 90 hertz refresh rate on this phone, I don't know if you should get it. In fact, I would say probably not. If I didn't have the option to do that, I might not keep the phone. I might not use the phone. Now, I think the software experience is fantastic, and I'll get to that. But that is one of the most awesome parts about this phone. How fast the software is, how it works together. The Google Assistant being mainly local on the phone, it doesn't have to connect to the internet for everything. And it's different from the OnePlus 7 Pros, which I had for about a week as well. The OnePlus 7 Pro's 90 hertz display. I mean, they're both variable out of the box, between 90 and 60. But something about the animations on the OnePlus were very, very basic. So even though it's extremely fast and fluid, it didn't feel as fluid as it does on the Pixel. And so even though the OnePlus 7 Pro's display was 90 hertz as well, of course it was sort of dynamic between 90 and 60, it still didn't quite feel as fluid as it does on here. And I think that has something to do with the animations. I really do. I don't know, something about it is just, it's extremely smooth. And it is the fastest, smoothest feeling phone for me ever. Okay, and that includes using every major manufacturer's flagship phone. And actually, I should rephrase that and just say smoothest, because I don't know really if it's any faster aside from the Google Assistant. I don't know if it's any faster than, say, the Galaxy. It feels like apps and things open pretty much at the same exact moment, but the experience is smoother and faster and more. I was at a party last night and people were commenting on that. They were like, wow, that's super fast. What phone is that? Some people initially thought it was the iPhone because of that camera housing, and I quickly pointed out how different the camera housing is on the iPhone. And they proactively said, oh, well, it looks better on this one, and I agree with them. But yeah, so listen, if you buy this phone, force that 90 hertz display, okay? Because you're going to be seeing a major difference, and you're going to be seeing animations that make you feel like this phone was just, like there's absolutely no delay between processing and you know, and your actions, your touches on the screen. It's fantastic. I mean, yeah, sometimes we call that lag, but this goes beyond the phone having no lag. This is just, it's unbelievable. So, of course, there's still loading times and everything, but even those are super smooth. So, in my opinion, unless you're a super big fan of Pixels, this phone is almost worth getting just for that unbelievably silky smooth software experience. And if you're not going to force turn on 90 hertz display, really don't bother getting this phone, because for the price, there are more complete phones out there. Well, not many, but a few. All right, so battery life, I'd give a 3.5 out of 5. Now, it sounded like it didn't deserve more than a 2 or 2.5 from what I heard from reviews, so that's what I expected it to be like. But like I showed you, always on display, always on, forced 90 hertz display. I'm clearing 5 hours of screen on time. But I will say that motion sense I've had turned off because it was, now, first of all, it works. It was registering my actions and doing what it's supposed to do, but sometimes when I didn't mean for it to skip a YouTube video or to go back or anything, it was doing that. And that's basically due to how I use YouTube on my phone. So I could be, for example, eating, I didn't want to touch the phone, or on the computer and I'm typing, and so some of my arm motions, because of my phone being close to me, were registered as, you know, me taking the actions to skip to the next video or to go back. And of course it would do that also for music. So I have motion sense off. Maybe I'll try that again at some point, put it back on. But yeah, so 90 hertz forced on and always on display, and I'm getting just fine battery life. So I'd give that a 3.5 out of 5, which is not bad at all. Software experience, I was really very, very tempted to give this thing a 5 out of 5, but I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5, just because it's missing a couple of features that I'd really like. So, for example, on the Galaxies and the OnePluses, and really almost every other Android flagship range, you can have like a dual app situation going on, where you have 2 instances of WhatsApp and or whatever other messaging application, or Snapchat or whatever, and a secure folder and all that stuff. And I think it's missing that, and it would be more complete if it had that, because I like that feature. And some would say, well, okay, I can get a stock experience on a OnePlus with those features, so why would I go with a Pixel? Well, aside from the camera, which is the obvious, the Pixel camera is a lot better. Okay, I'll just get that off right off the bat. Obviously, the one on the OnePlus is serviceable, but it's not the Pixel's camera. Aside from that, the software just feels, I don't know, it better integrated into the hardware, and it's like it's hard to explain, but everything, right down to the minute details like the animations, like I explained, and the hardware quality, even just speakerphone, which I use speakerphone a lot. I don't like to carry the phone, you know, to hold it onto my ear. And usually when I'm taking a call, it's somewhere private, so it doesn't matter if I'm, you know, using speakerphone. It's either in my office or at home or something like that. So I'll use speakerphone, and the speakerphone quality, according to everybody I spoke to, sounded a lot better on the Pixel than on the OnePlus 7 Pro. So I don't know. They said it sounded tinny, and I was cutting in and out, and I sounded like I was underwater with the OnePlus. So I'm not sure. I mean, regular call quality was fine, but speakerphone quality on that phone was not great. So hardware quality, and even just the software integration, I would say that if you're looking for a stock experience, pick the Google Pixel 4 over the OnePlus 7 or OnePlus 7 Pro. I haven't tried the 7T or the 7T Pro, but obviously the 7 Pro had the 90 hertz display, and so you know, if you're comparing between stock experiences that have the 90 hertz display, I would say, quite honestly, the Pixel is your answer, and especially if you didn't want a huge phone, because there really isn't a small option for the OnePlus, even though the regular 7 and the 7T obviously not as gargantuan in the hand as the 7 Pro and the 7T Pro, which you're talking, you know, cubic volume, not just the width or anything like that. That phone it feels very substantial. It's a very thick phone. So of course, to each their own. There are good things about the OnePlus as well, but my recommendation, definitely the Google Pixel 4, as far as that's concerned. So software, I'll give it a 4.5, like I said, out of 5. You know, it's got pretty much everything except, like I said, you know, duplicating apps, and that's probably the only thing it's missing. Now, there are a couple of extra software features that you get, for example, on Galaxy devices, which we all know about. Samsung throws every bell and whistle in there, and it's actually awesome. And that's why I've always felt like, quote unquote, updates are so overrated, because when Apple updates iOS, or even when Android updates their devices, most of the time they're just adding features and things that are already on some other devices like the Galaxy. So Anyway, software experiences of getting are getting more and more, I think, uniform across the board with Android, though it's still fragmented. I don't feel a gigantic difference in the software experience when I'm using a Galaxy compared to using this. In fact, the biggest difference is just that 90 hertz display again. But there's just small integrations, like just how fast that Google Assistant is. I mean, you just feel like squeezing the phone all day long. I'm not joking. Even to do menial tasks like opening certain apps, it's like, what's the weather today? Just instant. What about next week? So fast, so fluid, so beautiful. So anyway, yeah, that's software, about a 4.5 out of 5. And like I said, I've been a huge fan of always on display, for example, ever since it came out on the Nokia Lumia 920 in 2012, to the point where it's a deal breaker if a phone doesn't have that for me. And the OnePlus, for some reason, took that away, and it's more of an ambient display, and that's one reason why, if you really like always on display, then Pixel's your choice for stock Android experiences. And while the Pixel 4's always on display doesn't offer the same customization, for example, that, say, I don't know, like an S10 would, like any Galaxy phone, for example, where you can customize how the font looks, how the information is presented, the color. Like I picked these sort of this fall gradient. While it doesn't have all those customizations, it's still a very complete experience. The time, date, the current weather. Turn this off so you can see it. Time, date, current weather. And you even get pop-up notifications on the top of the always on display without further waking the screen. When you get your notification, the always on display stays how it is, and you see the notification at the top. So it's a really neat way that they integrated it. So like I said, also design, not special, but I mean, it's both unique and, for once, not the ugliest flagship on the market like previous Pixels. I think the ugliest this year has to belong to the iPhone. And while it's not like as beautiful as the S10 line or even the Note 10, it's not as ugly as it used to be. And by the way, to Apple, you finally had nice phones with the 10 and the 10s. What happened? I don't know. I'm not trying to troll Apple here, but actually I just complimented them and gave them some advice there at the same time. So okay, next, the camera. So I'm gonna look. You can get camera samples, and you've probably seen a bunch of camera samples of this phone by now. So I'm not gonna waste your time with too many of those. However, I'll get to the two main points. Number one, there's no wide-angle lens. So because of that, I'm giving the camera experience a 4.5 out of 5. Okay, that wide angle is important. In fact, it may be worth a whole point now. I'm not going to defend Google and not including that. I was disappointed that was not in there. However, they're doubling down on the telephoto lens, and it does take some pretty wonderful pictures. Now, one example I will show you. Now, if you pay attention to the right, there's a building with, some writing on it in blue and red, it appears, and this is just a regular shot, obviously not zoomed in. And if you do try to zoom in and take a shot of that building or the writing on that building, on almost every other phone I've tried, it's gonna be kind of this muddled blue and red fuzzy light mess. But on the Pixel, you can actually read the thing and see that it says Capital One. And so, okay, it doesn't have the wide angle lens, but it also does telephoto really better than anybody else. Obviously the Huawei's have their crazy optical zoom and all that stuff, but aside from that, we're talking about phones, for example, that we can get in the United States without really having to import. You don't have a wide angle, and that sucks, but I think you do have the best telephoto work in the business with the Pixel. So 4.5 out of 5 for the camera. Okay, so overall, should you buy this phone? In my opinion, if you're not super locked in, for example, into the Apple ecosystem, because if you are and everything you have is Apple, then really it's easier for you to just get an iPhone. If that's not the case for you, or you don't care, or you are kind of in the Apple ecosystem, but you've steadily kind of slowly grown a little bit tired of Apple of iPhones kind of always playing catch up and falling behind, then this would be a phone to consider. Now, it all depends on your personal needs. How important is design? Do you rock your phone without a case or not? How important is the camera? How important is having a telephoto lens, etc.? Again, if you are going to force 90 hertz refresh rate full time, I would say that I do recommend this phone. And if you're not, I would say don't bother getting this phone. Okay, I would say that it is, in terms of your overall feeling and software experience, probably the best of any phone in 2019. Okay, just in terms of that software experience. Is it the best phone overall in 2019? No. And I do plan to do an awards for the best phone in 2019 in a little bit, but I would still, as far as a complete package, amazing design, for example, and you know, everything you really want in a camera features, a wide angle lens, full suite of software features and hardware features. Like both of these have wireless charging, but for example, this has the reverse wireless charging, etc. Most complete phone, and if I had to recommend one, it would be the S10 still. And I've had the Note 10, I've had everything else. I mean, you've literally got everything here. You even still have the headphone jack. You've got the expandable memory. And this one here is 512 gigabyte internal storage. So, I mean, I'm probably would never even need to use the micro SD on this. So, it's not the best overall phone of 2019, but for me, I think it's gonna get into the top 3, at worst maybe top 4, and definitely recommended. And aside from telephoto, just regular point and shoot, normal lens, best camera experience of 2019. And as I said, best software experience of 2019. You can't tell on camera. You have to kind of use it to really feel it and believe it. All right, it's unbelievably buttery smooth. I have several phones here, and most of the time I find myself wanting to always go back to one of my Galaxies. Okay, I mean, the customization, everything, I have it looking how I want it to when I use a different launcher and all that. If you're not going to super customize your phone, I mean, just everything about, I keep wanting to pick this phone up. It's just that buttery smooth with the software experience. And if you're not super into smartphones, and if you're probably not watching this video anyway, you might not even notice too much of a difference. But if you really, if that's a real hobby of yours, and you've owned different smartphones in the past, I definitely think you're going to notice how unique this system is. So is it the best phone of 2019? No, but it is the most unique smartphone experience of 2019 in a good way. All right, so that's all. If you've got any questions, comments, let me know. This has been my Google Pixel 4 review. Take care. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to add, everybody. This thing works pretty flawlessly with my Samsung Gear S3 smartwatch. The setup process is a little bit longer than it would be on a Samsung Galaxy phone. You just have to download an extra plugin or whatever, but it's not like you have to follow any sort of directions. It all prompts everything for you and says you have to download this and you download that. So just one more thing to add to that, given that there's no Pixel Watch or anything, and you know, some people have soured on Wear OS. Definitely your Gear S3, which, so I'd imagine the Galaxy Watch as well, works just fine with this Pixel.